We've got some fresh
Hey,
new young
I'm
talent
Luis.
doing
And
something.
I'm Luis.
You're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
And we spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn how to turn that content into profit, just go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, guys. Today we have an awesome guest, awesome topic. Like always, the importance of creative teams for your business. Ooh, this is so juicy. Yes.
So juicy. Hashtag juicy. With that said, FONZI, do we have a sponsor today? I think we have a different sponsor today. Is it a different sponsor?
Great question. No, we have the same sponsor. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know
what you're talking about. Today's sponsor is your own, the BIZBROS. Yes, we sponsor our own podcast. Look how I'm holding the mic today. I'm like getting into it, guys. And we sponsor our podcast with content momentum. And you might be asking yourself, what is content momentum? Well, if you produce a long form piece of content, just like this one that you're listening to or watching, and you want to turn it into value pack, bite-sized assets, then we want to help you out. Slide in the DMs at BIZBROSCO on Facebook, on Instagram. This is what we're BIZBROSCO.
That's right. Well,
drop the mic.
The connection was out, but yeah, if you want your modern media team, just plug and play. Just give us a DM, send us a message, and go ahead and follow the podcast. Go ahead, follow the podcast. Follow us on social media at BIZBROSCO so you don't miss any of these episodes. And I think that's Gucci. FONZI, did I forget something?
Yes, you did. Please, guys, please. If you feel this episode help you and it can help somebody that you know, move them one step closer to their goal, please don't forget to share it. And like my brother said, leave a 5-star review. Thank you. I don't know what you've been saying that part. That's my part. I don't know why you're saying that.
Well, I didn't say it today, so you said it. That's why
I feel like you said it. I don't know. The distance is tricking me. The distance.
All right. We are back to the episode. 2 episodes in one day, 2 incredible entrepreneurs. Today's guest is bringing a new side of the creative work that we have not explored much here in the podcast. What side is that? Design.
Oh, yeah. We live in a world where we are visually marketed to every single day. Personal branding and design has never been as relevant as it is today. But where do we even start when it comes to this?
Today's guest has the answer to that problem. He has built a team that helps people as if they were their internal design team. That is pretty epic.
Yes.
He's speaking our language right now, building teams that people can leverage to grow their business.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited for this. Please welcome founder of Graphic Rhythm, Ian Bauer.
What's up, guys?
What's up, Ian?
Thanks for having me.
Dude,
Then,
thank you for being here.
I don't think you've noticed, but we're a little excited to have you here.
Well, that's all right. I like that.
I love
it to be here.
I love it.
I'm a little bit more excited than my brother because I already met you, Rad, and I know how awesome you are. So I'm trying to be a little contagious of this energy to my brother. It's a challenge, man, to be in separate rooms. I feel like this mechanic is a little different.
Yeah, but it's working. You're doing good.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Ian. Thank you so much.
It doesn't need to get me excited, man. Just the fact that you speak the same language, the team side of things. We've found in that incredible value, and of course, what you guys bring to the table. I can't wait to dive deep. Before that, Ian, would you like to share a little bit of your story? How does this whole journey with your company, with what you guys do, start?
Well, so it's kind of a long story, like all these stories are. I feel like most of the entrepreneurs I meet tend to have a similar story, especially like modern entrepreneurs, where I'm not talking about Y Combinator startups, but people like us who are just hustling and grinding and building, and so it really just evolved out of another business I own. So I have a business where we sell on Amazon, and I needed a designer. I've always loved graphic design. I've always loved art. That's just like one thing that I've always absolutely just loved personally. And so I always knew that when I built my own team, I wanted a designer on it. So I had a designer on my team. Yeah. And so I'm in a community of entrepreneurs, and you know, they were seeing the designs that we were doing and some of the stuff that we were putting out. And you know, basically they were like, hey, could I have your designer do that for me? So sure, yeah, you can. And so, I mean, from there it evolved, you know, into, like, we started out, if you saw Graphic Rhythm, we used to be called Graphic Rhythm Designs.
Okay.
There's a super mouthful, you know, like talk about trying to email, you know, Graphic Rhythm Designs. It's already terrible that we have the word rhythm in there. By the way, I can empirically say that like 75% of people don't know how to spell rhythm. And like so many emails don't make it to us. But so anyway, so we used to be Graphic Rhythm Designs. And if you had seen our website, like when we started out, it was just like a single form, like, hey, just like send us money and then send me an email, tell me what you want, you know. And then we've evolved now into this like suite of services that we can offer agencies and small businesses.
That's so fun.
Awesome.
That's fun.
I love how you listen to the market, right? And you know, it's in entrepreneurs' DNA to be like, you see a problem, it's like, how do I solve this, right? And the fact that you started hearing people asking you for designs, you translate that into a problem, right? What was the problem? They didn't have a trustful designer that they could count on to do their designs, right? Or the ones that they have maybe wasn't good enough. And you identify that as an opportunity, right? Because problems are just opportunities. And you decided to go ahead and do that. And I'm curious, you know, along your that journey of creating Graphic Rhythm, was there any challenge, right, at one point where you were like, you know what, maybe this is not a venture that I'm willing to chase, right? Was there something, a wall that you hit that it was about to stop you, but you know, anything past that was just a big gain for you and your business?
Yeah. So, so the model that I originally kind of came up with here, finding the model was a hard thing to do, right? So if you look at the field of competitors that we're in, we compete with other service-based agencies out there who offer like this monthly subscription for unlimited graphic design, right? And so that model didn't work for me. I didn't really like it. I felt like, not that it's necessarily dishonest. It's just attaching the word unlimited to it, and then, but there was always limitations. You know, there is limitations. There's got to be. You know, like it's not like a all you can eat buffet here. And so, yeah, like I wanted to do something different. And so what I decided on was this system of essentially like design credits. So like you subscribe to what we do, and then you get a bunch of design credits, and then you basically turn those credits in for design work. And now it's upfront. We know that there is a limit. We know what that limit is, and it gives us the ability to offer like different plans and different packages, and you know, but it's super hard to explain this model. And so that was to your question, you know, like, was there a wall? Was there a challenge? And that challenge was really like explaining how this all works, you know, and getting people to buy into the model. And the people that do buy in really, really like it. They like that it's transparent. They like that they could see like how much mileage they get, you know. So explaining that and getting people to buy into that model, I would say, is probably one of our biggest challenges. That's my
Dude, I love this. I don't think this is something that we've actually tackled before. And you know, with our service, with Content Momentum, like the model itself on how we do the assets, right? It's a secret sauce. It's what allows us to create high volume with little friction, distribute with little friction, right? But I love your credit view. And the reason is we started to work with a software not so long ago that they're also credit based, right? So, and what he did was like, he showed me, he's like, let me show you. This is hard to explain. Let me just show you. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that is genius, right? That is so easy to understand and so easy to execute. So what, like for you and building that model, was that like right off the bat, or like how was it born out of feedback from people? I mean, you mentioned a little bit, you're not happy with the current models, right? And then how did you started to implement that on your day-to-day with your team to be able to execute this with clients?
Right. So the credits is actually the most challenging part of this whole thing. You know, so think about it, like we're a service business. We're not a SaaS company. We're not a software company, right? Our profit margins are slim, like they are in service-based businesses, right? And so to just, you know, wrap your head around a what it takes to provide a service in exchange for credits, right? So how does the client submit a design request? Where do they go and see their design credits? How does the designer know how to charge design credits? Does the designer even have that choice, or is it like a canned thing? And so we had to solve all those problems. And I mean, it was painful, honestly. Like we went through iterations of software where it was just a disaster. You know, like number one, and I'll tell you this straight up, working with Graphic Rhythm over the last year and a half, the number one thing that you'd be frustrated about is our software, because there is no software that exists anywhere in the world that does what we need it to do, which is this. It's almost like a ticket-based, it's a help desk with design credits attached to it. And so we actually had to custom build software. We got to a point now, all of our clients who have stuck with us over the years, you know, have stuck around for the customer service, have stuck around for the designs, have stuck around for, you know, like our culture and the quality of the work we do. They are not sticking around for the user interface at all, right? And so I'm really grateful for them, because that momentum helped us essentially save up to build a custom software that it's like a custom portal now, and you go in and it all works exactly the way I want it to work. If you join Graphic Rhythm right now, you are going to have a fundamentally different user experience than a year ago. So, I mean, so that's one of the things that was good.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I want to highlight the fact that you said, hey, like this was a solution that was not in the market and we created it, right? And before that, you guys focused on the client experience, right? And we talked about this on the show, like on the experience in general, like from your content side of things to how you deliver your product or your services, right? And I think that's so important, because you mentioned like people stuck around for these reasons, right? And then everything else that comes is value add. So as soon as you deliver that experience just becomes so much better, right? And there's a lot of people, and definitely this was us at the beginning, focusing on the features and like we need to have all this stuff ready. But really, what is at the core of the product, of the service that we deliver? How can we help our client really to achieve their objective, right? And then from there, what are these pieces that we can add to the experience that gets it better and better and better and better over time, right? And now what you guys have, I'm assuming, is like this ecosystem that if somebody gets in there, right, is really challenging, not just to get out, but because they're getting their results, they're getting a great experience, they're getting exactly what they're paying for, right? Like they're gathering incredible value. Why would they leave? So as a business side of things, it's really strong what you guys have created, and those are lessons that we can, you know, translate into really any business framework on, okay, how can we start thinking about that client experience? How can we start thinking about how can we add value to what it's already a very valuable service? So I think that's incredible that you guys were able to figure that out and create that ecosystem to make sure that it works for your team and it works for your clients as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think by building this customer, you're just on the business side of things, right? You are helping to increase that lifetime value of your customer, just because they're probably going to stay longer with you because of how well it is managed from beginning to end, how you're managing expectations with the tokens that you're saying, right? So I think this is super, super important. But I am curious on one thing, and this is part of the part of the topic that excited me a lot, which is why people would decide to go to Graphic Rhythm, right? Where they could have, like, let's say, and I'm doing air quotes here, their internal design team, someone, you know, people that already starts knowing your brand, really good designers that they don't have to vet themselves, they don't have to hire themselves, instead of going with like a in-house solution. Because, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? But somebody that might be listening to this would be like, oh, but I can just hire a designer and they can do whatever I want. Why is more actually beneficial, you know, to go with someone like you guys, like graphic design?
Yeah, well, so you brought up a couple of points, and you know, the common refrain is that it's cheaper, but the fact is it's not cheaper, really. It's not cheaper. You could go find somebody offshore who's a great graphic designer, hire them to your company for the same amount of money that you would pay us to do it, right? And so it's it's popular in my field to like quote, like, hiring a internal designer is $40,000 or $60,000 a year, but that's if you're hiring somebody in the US, and you can easily get around it. Here's the key, though. that graphic designer that you hire is a one-trick pony. And that's just the nature of graphic design. You know, like your designer might be a Viking in illustration, but when you ask them to put together like a social media banner using pre-made vector assets or something like that, or layout and design or typography, or create a logo, they drop the ball. So now you need another designer, right? And that designer has a specialty and they have a wheelhouse that they're, you know, excellent in, right? So, you know, in order to get a well-rounded experience, in order to, you know, complete what you need as far as a graphic design skill set, you actually need multiple people. And so that's why working with a team is going to be a better kind of, I like the word bolt-on solution for your business, where now you have a team. We have, you know, you have access to a creative director when you work with us. You have access to illustrators. You have access to typography experts. You have access to logo designers. We don't publicly offer right now as part of our design service any video editing, but we're about to ramp up to do that because like 2 or 3 guys on our team are great at motion graphics and editing video. And so we're like, okay, we get asked all the time how to do this. So why don't we just figure out how to do it? So having access to that team who has a variety of different skill sets and could be there really in any way you want, that's the secret sauce as far as I'm concerned, is that you're not just bolting on a designer, you're bolting on an entire design department, which is the key.
Yeah. Yes, I love that answer. Being honest, like the answer that we've thought for that question that I've made you, I've answered in different ways, but I've never answered the way you just did. I love that. And that is true. Like every designer has their specialty, right? They're like what you call a one-trick pony. And it's the same in the creative industry. Usually people have their one specialty. For example, the other day I was at a coffee shop and the barista, he was telling me that he graduated from Savannah School of Design, right? And I was like, oh, cool. What do you do? And he's like, I literally just do After Effects for explosions. He's like, that's all I do. And I was like, that's it? Like, I mean, I was like, obviously, I don't know about the industry, but I was like, well, you went to school for years just to like do explosions, and I'm sure it's totally worth it. I'm sure it's a very difficult skill, right? But that gave me the kind of like that perception that you're talking about, like, wow, there's one trick pony, and if they want to do a full-on production, they're gonna need a lot of other people, right? And it's the same for the business, right? It's so key what you're mentioning. For us, we talk about not also but the cost of learning, right? If you have that one person, one trick pony that they need to learn something else, a new skill is going to take them time, which that is your business resources that you're spending on them, right? And sometimes you just need that turnaround a little bit faster. You know, you cannot wait for that person to learn certain skill to do something. Then the other thing is the cost of hiring, right? I mean, we might hire it. Let's get this straight. Like the first person that we hire is not always the best person, right? A lot of times we're going to have some internal turnover right there. And we're going to have to fire some people and hire new people. And that is time that you're wasting and resources that you're wasting training the people that you're bringing in. So there's a big cost involved with having internal teams that I feel like small businesses might not be able to, you know, take that risk. So when it comes to somebody like you for yourself, right, that already have this team with lots of different skills, and you already have the processes in place for people to go in there and tap into those resources as fast as possible, that is a game changer because now they can just take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I have a question on the team side of things and how you built it too. That might bring some light into people that want to do it themselves and then evolve from here. And obviously the solution, if they want to do design, go to you. If they want to do long form content into awesome assets, they come to us, right? So here's, but like how was that transition from you one man shop to building the team, right? Because that has been such an important piece for us last year inside of our company. That's when we transitioned from freelancers to a solid team that now executes the service side of things, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of the people that listen to us are in that stage where they need to transition, right? They need to go there. So how was your experience doing that transition where like, okay, I have this idea. I know that we can deliver a ton of value. We've heard the feedback, right? Here's the product. Now, what was that challenge for you going from idea to team?
Well, so it was never me by myself because I'm not a designer. But so our creative director, one of our creative directors, who's still with me now, actually started this business with me, essentially.
Yeah.
And she was the one who, like, before it was even a business, I was like sending work to for clients, and for our business in particular, the curve seems to have been like, there's people in a business who are production people, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably true of most businesses, but they're the people that produce the thing, And so for us, that's obviously graphic designers. And as our volume of business grew, we added on more graphic designers, right? But at a certain point, I was like, I'm really bad at telling designers how to do design. Like, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm really kind of just relying on them to know what the hell they're doing, right? And just telling them good or bad. I need somebody in here who can really provide support for them. So that's when I first hired a creative director. So he was our first creative director. Now, I mentioned my first employee. She was eventually promoted to creative director, but we needed a creative director in here. So that was like one of the first hires, right?
Yeah.
And so after that, now it's much easier to grow the business because now I have somebody who can speak the language of design. And by the way, we should talk about this later about like what the one of the biggest challenges that I see with clients, because it's interesting. But
yeah,
he helped with that. We should talk about it. But then what really over the last year, what I've been doing is I've been thinking about what I do on a daily basis and finding other people to do it. Right. So there's like this whole operations piece that I was doing where I was like managing projects and like moving things around and putting things in the right place and, making sure I'm chasing up due dates and stuff like that. And I'm like, geez, like I'm tired of doing this. I want to be on podcasts. I don't want to be doing operations. So I hired an operations director. Right. And so she took all that. But the thing about hiring an operations director is that person does not contribute directly to the bottom line. They're not a producer. Right. And so you have to kind of get to a place where you can make space in your business for those non-producing people. And so then there's other people, customer service agents, account managers, marketing managers, all those people that are kind of auxiliary, but they're all like pieces of what I do, So I take a chunk of what I do and give it to somebody else, a chunk of what I do and give it to somebody else. And that's really the role, the way I've approached it. Like right now we're looking for a customer service manager because I'm tired of being a customer service person, and so we'll train her, and then all I could do all day long is be on podcasts. So yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
The fun part, right? The fun part is just being on podcasts, creating content.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
That's awesome. And let's go to that question that you wanted to talk about, that challenge with the clients that you mentioned. Before we go there though, I love the way you just literally gave like a little blueprint on how to build a business, right? You start doing things, and then when you have processes and something that you don't want to do, or the moment that you need to hand it off to someone, you get that someone in place, and you focus first on those people that are going to be producing for you, right? Helping you with the business and most important activities. And we relate a lot to that because right now my brother is actually the one that is in charge of clients communications, right? He's that operations guy, right? And recently he actually delegated part of those activities to one of our new team member, and I can tell he just lifted a huge weight off his shoulder.
Yeah.
And now I was like, okay, when is the next operations person that can help us with managing client work so we can be in podcasts all the time, right? Like having fun and talking and sharing our ideas, which is great. But at the same time, like we need to still focus on those producing activities as well, right? We need to still do sales, outreach, all that other stuff that the business doesn't grow without. So yeah, let's go back to that biggest challenge with your clients. I'm curious, what is that? Because you were like, this is very important.
Yeah. So, and I'm not going to make any friends by saying this, so bear with me. But in a lot of in most of the cases where clients come to us and we work with them, the biggest problem is actually the clients, right? And so that was kind of our secret sauce when we started out. That was my secret sauce. That was who I was in the business. Is I was the guy who translated whatever came out of your mouth, Mr. Client, into something that a designer could produce, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so that went back to like what I was saying with our creative director, him helping facilitate that process by basically, the most people, I think, struggle with creativity or struggle to put their ideas into words or describe what they're looking for or describe their end result. Mm-hmm. And so we actually spend time, we create training material, in the form of content, that's essentially like, how, here's how to write a good design brief. Here's how to work with a designer, and a good example of that is, I call it poisoning the well, where a designer or a designer gives a client something and the client doesn't like it, right? So the client immediately they put on their creative director hat. They're now an art director, and they start saying, can you reduce the shadows in the bottom left corner by 50% and increase the size of the font by 2 points, or, and so they give all this like creative direction, and then it becomes a disaster, right? So the designer is just like, all right, they told me exactly what to do. I'm going to go do it. And it comes out bad. Well, why did it come out bad? Well, because you're not a designer, right? And so the things that you were telling the designer to do are incorrect, actually.
Yeah.
And instead, and here's a takeaway for everybody, instead use this format. Say, it's too dark, it's too crowded, it's too soft, it's too light. And then let the designer figure out how to solve that without giving specific design direction. So there you go. Yeah. That's the biggest problem.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We both were like, yes, please, let's do this because, okay. And I just right here, the It's To framework. And that's going to be your framework that's going to be coined in the Content is Profit, vault of amazing value things. And I feel you, right? Because we obviously deal with a lot of video and we do content map structure. And there are a lot of the frameworks that on how we operate on the content side of things, it was created by us. Like it's very different on how other people might be able to create content. We've been around and we've seen and we produce in different ways, and because we wanted a certain output, we had to create kind of like your system on the back end and the software for us is the way, and this is the M2M system that we use to create this stuff, right? So the first challenge, and I can totally relate to this, was how to translate that system into the staff, the team, right? Because they're coming with these different abilities, right? And they're coming together to put together this batch process, right? So we had to create a language, not just for the system. This is something that we showed the other day in our community with the 45 Live. We showed it in the behind the scenes, not only on how we structure all the file systems, like from there to how do we communicate. There's different stages, the value index, the content map, the assets, like the coding that goes behind the titles of each of the assets, right? So there's a whole language that goes around that. And it's been awesome because now that you broke it down the way that you did, it's been a process that we've been implementing with our clients. We're like, the first couple sessions is literally, we're going to teach you exactly how do we communicate in this specific sense, so we don't lose anything. And I love the It's To framework. We're actually going to start applying that to that communication because it solves a ton of issues. So I want to give you props for that. And sometimes because we're the technicians, we're the ones that implementing it, that connection between the operation side of things and the client, that they're in a different mindset, they don't know. And the way that you guys were able to create content and educate your people around how to communicate effectively with your team, it's awesome. It's all part of that ecosystem, right? So I encourage people listening right now, like, think about your service. Think about your product, right? What is the gap in between in communication with that, especially if you deliver a service? What is that gap? And then you can coach your people like on how to do that. And Ian, with your framework that It's To, that's a great way to do so. So awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. Oh,
it always surprised me how, and I used to be a victim of this, right? They deliver something to you and then you put that creative hat on, like you said. and you just start going like, oh no, do this X, Y, and Z, right? Like we put on that perfectionist hat on. It has to be perfect instead of like putting it out there. Also, when clearly we don't have design skills, if somebody else with design skills is giving me that, that is probably better than what I have envisioned myself, right? And that took a lot of work for us, right? Personally, I was like, oh man, like I would change certain things, but then I would remind myself, guess what? That person is a better designer than me, or that person is a better video editor than me. I'm just gonna let them do it, and I'm just gonna publish it. Do you know, when we go to perfectionism, right? And all these people, do you think that's some sort of insecurity of just actually publishing whatever they're getting from their side? Or what is it? Why do you think people want to like micromanage to that level instead of, I'm getting some awesome assets that I wouldn't have been able to do myself, right? Let me publish them, instead of, oh no, I need to change X, Y, Z and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. We definitely see that range of clients where some of them are like, hey, yeah, this looks great. Let's just, go with it. And then, I mean, I could count on one hand the number of refunds we've had. And it's always been people who are like, like they have to like micromanage and absolutely control everything. Yes. And I haven't been able to talk them off the ledge. A lot of times I could like wade into the fray and like pull designer and client apart and just be like, hey, everybody, let's just settle down here. Let's go back to the beginning and look where we went off track here. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's the same, whatever it is though, it's the same thing. It's the same exact mentality that new business owners have, where they want to like make sure everything is perfect before they launch. It's that same idea, like, oh, I have to have the perfect business name. I have to have the perfect URL. I have to have the perfect website. Like all these things are stopping me from launching. But like, there's this, I'm personally of the belief that speed is better always. Like being first, being faster is better than being perfect. And so, yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because like right before this interview, we had our staff call, right? And we were walking them through a new positioning that we might be taking a very short amount of time on how do we explain what we do on at the high level, right? So we have the service, right? And then now we have an amazing community that's starting to publish every single day. And one of the questions that one of our staff members had was like, hey guys, why don't you like, you guys should be teaching on how to do content, right? How to create content. And we're like, no, we don't want to go there. We were there because we were serving a couple of years back these brick and mortar businesses where we had to convince them that long form content was a really effective way to create content with the assets that we can create. So we actually go to the location and film, right? But this is the thing. We had to coach them on how to deliver that message because they were not familiar. They didn't know how to do that, right? So they will do it, and then the final product will come out, which is exactly the process that we sell, right? And then they will be like, I don't like it. I'm like, but why don't you like it? Well, because of what I said. It's not the right and I'm like, okay, this is not a production issue. This is a messaging issue, which is you, right? And so we had to coach a lot of people through this, and we're like, man, we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, right? So we're like, okay, here's maybe this is the way that we got to do it. So what we've learned over time is learning exactly who is the person that we want to work with. So the people that we serve on the service side of things is people that they have their messaging down, they have been consistent over time. So and the people that we want to bring into the community, that are coming into the community, are people that are discovering that message. So maybe that product, right, that's what it serves. But I still don't wanna teach for capacity level. Maybe at some point in the future, that might be one of those pieces of content that it puts out just like you guys do from the educational level. But at the client level, right, if you're running an agency, who's that person? Who's your ideal person that can communicate with you? What is that pedigree that they already have to know to be able for us to execute to the best of our ability so you guys can maximize the results in your business? So it was fun to have that conversation because we're like, at the service level, if I get somebody that wants a product, wants to do it, will execute consistently, but they're not clear on their message, that's going to create a ton of friction on the back-to-back because the communication is not going to be the same, which is similar to the situation that you just described. So I want to encourage everybody listening, right? what is that? Who's that right person? Like, at what level do they need to be? And we start communicating. And if there's gaps, how can we bridge that gap? Like, for example, like Ian was saying, creating those pieces of content to teach him on how to communicate with the team and so on. So I think that the fact that you're laying out this blueprint on how to build your team, how to communicate between client and operation side of things is incredible, man. So I want to say thank you. And those are some of the ideas that we have distilled over the conversation that I feel is super useful, especially if you're in a position that you want to build a team, or especially if you want design work, definitely go to Ian. Go to the links right in the description. That's it. As simple as that.
And like we've talked a little bit about challenges, like your story, of course, the importance of having, kind of like outsourcing the team instead of you doing your own hiring. But I'm curious now on why, or what do you see is the importance of, design and personal branding, or design inside of a business, right? Especially nowadays. And like, I would love to explore that idea. I actually had a follow-up question to that, but I forgot it. So I'm gonna remember it in just a second.
That's why you write stuff, Fonzie. That's why you have to write stuff. What's going on?
I know, that's why I have my pen and paper here. I forgot to write that question.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, I feel like design is very important. But besides just my feelings about it, there's actually some kind of like juicy stuff out there. Adobe puts out a state of create report. And the most recent one I looked at, it was something like 80% of consumers say that they're more willing to buy from a brand that has a good visual presence. I'm trying to remember what that quote is, but you can check it out. Adobe State of Create report. It's kind of interesting. But also, and this is something we haven't really talked about. Like, we talked about our daily design, which is the design credit subscription, but actually a huge part of our business is creating Amazon graphics. So designs specifically for the Amazon marketplace, right? So imagery, storefront designs, and anything that has to do with Amazon. And that whole ball of wax includes copywriting. It includes design direction. So you're not working directly with a designer, you're working with a manager. But what we have seen from that marketplace is that, and from the world at large, is that they're really driving towards this visual world. We are becoming a visual world. We always were, but now it's happening digitally. And if you think about like the rise, when was the last Facebook really that appeared? It didn't. It's been Instagram, it's been TikTok, it's been Pinterest, these visual marketplaces, video marketplaces. Amazon and other marketplaces are making a huge push into the visual world, where they're prioritizing imagery, they're prioritizing video. And so a design is a great way to quickly communicate information, and it's really advertising. Anytime you create a design, I don't care if it's social media or Instagram or or an Amazon image or a Shopify image or a blog header or whatever, the point is that you're communicating information rapidly. And so there's two takeaways from that, which is, first of all, do it, right? And don't just make it pretty, make it powerful, make it impactful. And then two, I really believe that it's important to make it consistent, right? So it should look like you, right? And I always use the example of Neil Patel, right? Whenever I come across a website, because he's got all these different properties, right? Whenever I come across a property that's like predominantly that orange color, that like Neil Patel orange color, I always go and look like, is this one of his companies, right? Because I associate that color with him. And if you check out any of his stuff, he's got that orange color always in his background, always on his website, and always in his designs. Yeah. And so, you could do essentially the same thing, through design by creating like a signature thing. If you look at Graphic Rhythm, we've got that like purple pink gradient all the time. Yeah. We've always got like this dot grid pattern that we put on everything, so what I want is when people come across us in the wild, if they come across something with a pink and purple gradient background and a dot grid design feature on there, I want them to go, I wonder if that's from Graphic Rhythm, and so it starts to inoculate people into your brand. And the thing about that is that looking good creates trust, It really does. And, the gas station model is a great example of that, right? So gas stations have existed forever, but the ones that look like hell, that are dirty and that, have like old signage out front, people are less willing to do that than to go to, I'm going to use Sheetz. I don't know how far Sheetz has reached, but, Sheetz, Wawa, these kind of like, chain gas stations where everything is super polished. There now it's a brand. You feel confident going in there, like from the outside that the bathroom is going to be clean on the inside. And so that confidence is really the goal of good design, of really presenting yourself, confidently. So
yeah, I love it. Kind of like that's storefront kind of like view perspective on design, right? Like if people perceive it to be clean, they assume what's on the other side is clean too, whether that is processes, customer service, all that stuff, right? And it doesn't take too much to look around, right, and find the best brands that you see they have awesome and clean designs as well, right? I mean, we use Apple everything, and they're just so simple, so clean. And when you go to a store and you see a design, everything, right? And I love that gas station comparison, because as you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, I always skip the sketchy looking ones. I was like, I don't want anything bad to happen to me, so just keep driving and find the next one.
I mean, think about the Wawas. You mentioned Wawas, like they're exploding where we are, and it's like people just go hang out at Wawas, right? They have Tesla charging stations at Wawas, and you're like, what is this? Like, it's turning into a mall experience, really. And people, like, basically the sandwiches are delicious over there too. So be the Wawa of design.
Of course, you would go for food.
Absolutely, all the time, man.
There has been awesome. I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm curious on, do you have an action point for people out there that maybe they have not seen design the way you see it, the way you just explained it, right? It's like, hey, it's like the storefront for you and your business. How can they start implementing that, right? Like, how can they start working on better designs on their brand, or how can they start, looking for what are some things that they can find when they're looking for better creative teams that they can, put into their business?
Well, so there's a few different ways that I can answer this, and the first part of that question is a revelation that I just kind of had while we were talking, which is that I think that one of the ways that you can hack your authority levels when you're starting out is to do really good at presenting yourself as professional. So that was just kind of like an idea that just occurred to me. Like, if you're a new business or starting out, maybe think about how to, basically build authority and build confidence right from the get-go by having a good design, a good visual presence in the world. So that's one thing. Now, I want to share a quick story about when I hired my creative director, because that was also a revelation to me when it happened, and it's fun. I love that revelation because one of the things is part of our services is to do visual discovery, and it's like this great moment when it clicks with somebody, what I'm about to describe, and that's cool because I get to do it all the time. So I created the very first logo for Graphic Rhythm, right? I don't know why. It was, and I'll tell you why. Because remember what I said, that designers are one-trick ponies sometimes? Well, my designer, who was awesome, she created great Amazon images. She was like a print-on-demand superhero. She could do T-shirts all day long. Like, she could do so much cool stuff. But she was terrible at logos. She was really terrible at logos. And so I was like, all right, well, I mean, I'll just do it then, right? So I made this terrible logo. But I don't know if it would have been better or worse than hers. But I made this terrible logo, right? So then I bring on this creative director, and it's so funny because he comes on board and he takes me aside. And he's like, "Hey man, would you mind if I redid our logo?" I'm like, "What are you trying to say?"
Yeah. And your ego, who was like, "What?"
I'm thankful I don't have much of one when it comes to that, because I was ready to hand it off. I was like, "Yeah, please, just go take it." Right.
Run with it.
And so he was actually the one that came up with the way Graphic Rhythm looks right now. But here's the cool thing, and here's what I want everybody to really kind of experience is, like we had a conversation about, all right, well, what do you want to project? Who do you want to be perceived as? What feeling do you want a customer to have when they interact with you? What culture, what impact? Like, so we established all these like kind of like brand attributes that were important, and then the result was like a boom. Like wow. Like I loved it right from the first thing. So that was really cool. And then we do that all the time. And recently, I brought a partner on with Graphic Rhythm, and we were talking about logo and like visual identity. And he's like, man, like to me, a logo should be like $50. I'm like, hold on a minute, right? And it's and that preceded like 2 weeks before he had said that, and then 2 weeks later, he's like, like we went on Fiverr to try and get a packaging design made, and it just looks terrible. I'm like, hold on a minute, let's get on a call. So I got on a call with him. And I was like, all right, so tell me, like, who are your customers? What do you want them to feel? Like, what should they experience when they open up your new product and look at it, right? And at the end of it, he's like, that was amazing. Like, I feel heard. I feel understood. I feel like, and then when we present that to him, that it all comes together. It's like, wow, all right. Like you have just like translated, you've taken things out of my brain that I didn't know how to take out, and you put them visually. So, your question was, what should people do starting out? And I think that, at a basic level, do some research. We have some assets on our site that you could look at for like creating a mood board, right? Which is you collect designs from around the internet, you put them together onto one sheet so that a designer can know like what you're going for at a minimum. Choose a couple of font pairings. They're, again, super easy to Google. Go do that. Choose a font pairing you like, and then choose a color palette. Right. If you are super DIY and you just need to get going, that's a good place to start. And then if you're consistent about using those things, then you're going to be ahead of a lot of people. But I really think that there's a lot of value to having a professional visual identity created for you, because that's going to be super impactful. Having a professional designer kind of like really take it apart and put it back together the way that you want it to look. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so
awesome.
Fun.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to start for sure. That takes some level of self-assessment, honestly, right? Like looking at yourself and asking some questions that maybe you skip because someone started way too fast sometimes, and you're like, okay, I haven't even thought about how do I want people to perceive me and my brand.
Yeah. On our side too, like a lot of the messages, hey, especially with publishing, it's like, okay, how do we remove the friction from executing on publishing, right? And that has been the 45 Live kind of challenge theme. But after that, there's different levels that we achieve, right? So those are elements that people can start thinking about. How do they elevate, right? While they already are taking action and executing on, right? So I think this is great. And as I'm walking through like our own process, right? There's elements in here that reflect that. And it was born out of a place from a person that is not a designer, right? The whole process was designed by us, that we're not really designers, but we're like, okay, what is that feeling? And I think that communication needs to happen with that designer, right? That can translate all these thoughts, all this vision into something tangible, like you said, right? And elevate that trust and that level. So I think it's wonderful what you guys do out there. And this has been super helpful, not only for us, but also for the people tuning in and listening. And so thank you for sharing. And this was awesome. Yeah, appreciate it. FONZI, thank you.
So we have two more questions for you, right?
Okay.
The first one is, where would you be, right? And so we usually ask people, where would you be if you didn't publish? But for you is, where would you be if you didn't have taken on this venture of creating Graphic Rhythm?
Where would I be? I don't know. I that's a great question. I have no idea. I'd be doing something else like it. I've definitely got that like entrepreneurial spirit where I'm like, I have to actively prune back my ideas and be like, no, don't do that. Just stop. Like I've got other stuff to do. No, do you know how many URLs I buy?
Oh yeah,
I'm just like, that's a great idea. I'm gonna go buy the URL right now, and I've got it. And then so 10 years from now, it like renews every year, and I never do anything with it. So I think that if it wasn't for Graphic Rhythm, I would definitely be, doing some other business for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. And the URLs totally resonate. You know those apps that now you see the commercials that is like, see how many subscriptions you have. I'm sure like 90% of those subscriptions is the yearly URL renovations that we got in there. So thank you for sharing, Ian. And then the last one is, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you if they want, Graphic Rhythm to be part of their team and to work on their designs? Where do they go?
So you should head to www.graphicrhythm.com. Feel free to check out everything we do there. One thing I haven't said is we're really a full stack design agency. So our goal is to be a lifelong design partner. So whatever you need, that's exactly what we want to do for you. So yeah, graphicrhythm.com is the place to go.
Awesome. Guys, I want to encourage everybody that's listening to go check them out. I don't know. Do you have like a trial test or something that they can go ahead and like learn a little bit more about you experience, you guys?
So our portfolio is on our site, and then we offer a 30-day money back guarantee. So just try us out. If you don't like it, we'll give you your money back. Definitely.
Hey, that's awesome, guys. Please go check them out. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, with everything that we've heard today, I don't think you're gonna have an issue with a 30-day money back guarantee. I don't think people take that one. They just continue the relationship. So it's gonna be super awesome. Sounds good. All right. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow everywhere on the podcast, on social media at BIZBROS Co and Content is Profit.
That is rad.
Yeah.
And if you find this episode impactful, please don't forget to share it with somebody and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.